excited for this one. That's the main point. So my name is Kenna Stormo Gibson. I do housing and tax policy research for the Hawaii Budget and Policy Center. I ended up here 2 years ago because my spouse is in the Air Force and I needed to do a project for my master's thesis, and seems like housing is an important topic. So I did my master's work for UC Berkeley on housing and how to pay for the infrastructure here in Hawaii. Yeah, so that's how I got involved in this. And then after I did my thesis, I ended up working for UH Public Policy Center. I worked for the Hawaii State Senate, and now the Hawaii Budget and Policy Center. So a lot of policy and budget and housing. But I am really excited for this panel because we're actually looking to learn from people who have lived in these flats. So people's real lived experience and what it's been like for them in Singapore, actually day to day in this housing. So our first panelist is Jessica Tan, an architect at RSP Architects, Planners, and Engineers, who purchased an HDB flat on the primary market. She is currently the chairperson of the Government Parliamentary Committee for Finance, Trade, and Industry. Our second presenter is Nicholas Yong, assistant news editor for Yahoo News Singapore, who bought an HDB flat on the resale market. Mr. Yong has worked in journalism for 12 years across broadcast, print, and digital media, and has covered overseas assignments in Hong Kong, China, Australia, Indonesia, and the US. He spent 1 week here in Hawaii at the East-West Center as a Jefferson Fellow this past April. So a Singapore-Hawaii connection. And then we have Mr. Varian Lim, a senior executive at Honest Bee, a Singapore-based online grocery startup. He has worked in the Singapore Civil Service in management consulting and attended Columbia University for his bachelor's degree and Stanford University for his master's degree in management science and engineering. He is currently owner of an HDB flat, but is preparing to move into a flat in the private market. Last but not least is Miss Annalisa Burgos, right here, anchor for Good Morning Hawaii weekends on KITV4 Island News. She has worked in journalism for over 20 years in nearly a dozen cities across the US and Asia, including at ABS-CBN in Manila and for 4 years at Channel News Asia in Singapore. While in Singapore, she lived in both a private sector rental flat and an HDB rental flat. Okay, great. Oh, there's our lovely presenters. And I think
Can they hear us?
Can they hear us? Well, we're starting with Jessica Tan, who is...
Hi, okay, good evening, guys. 2 years ago, my husband and I decided on purchasing a flat with HDB. So today I'd like to share my experiences on selecting this flat under the build-to-order or sale of balance scheme. And I'll just like to give you a brief overview of these two schemes. So basically, this is upcoming new flats released by HDB in newly developed land or land which has been backed by HDB. So for this kind of flats, tender for construction will only be called if the number of applicants is at least 70% of the number of units being offered for selection. Some of the pros and cons of this is that typically there'll be more chance of being allocated a flat due to the large amount of units offered and unused ratio quota. So in Singapore, each flat offered will be having a ratio quota is fair across all races. So for example, you'll find yourself living next to a Malay if you are Chinese or an Indian, because we would like to have sort of a balance in the different races within a HDB flat. Okay, so for this build-to-order scheme, it's typically cheaper in price than open market. With good planning, planning for future, there'll be more grants available to young couples like myself. when our income is lower at this stage of life and less chance of exceeding an income ceiling imposed by HDB. So this BTO scheme usually has brand new flat and design features, usually also part of the overall district master plan, more holistic design in terms of park and natural settings in the overall district neighborhood, for example, Forest Town in Tega or Waterways Town in Punggol. However, the downside is that for couples who want to get married earlier, the waiting period is actually 3 to 4 years because during flat selection, that has not been constructed yet. And usually in non-mature estates, where regional centers will only come up in the near future. Okay, so the next scheme is actually called the Sale of Balance Scheme, which is the releasing of a batch of flats that was not fully sold in the previous build-to-order exercise or others. So this is a scheme that me and my husband actually went for to select a flat because wanted to get married soon, and the waiting time for this under this scheme is less than 2 years. So the pros of buying from a sale of balance scheme is that some of it is already part of the built-to-order flats. However, those are unused units, so we could expect relatively new flats and design features as well. While some of these flats are already newly built, which allows interested buyers to view the buildings that have already been constructed for us to get a feel of the space. It is also quite affordable depending on the location and more affordable for non-mature estates. However, that we could also select from mature estates depending on the type of units available for selection. The cons, however, there are typically less desirable units which are left over, which have not been selected. For example, there are units which orientate towards direct sunlight. Other examples is that it's near the bin center, near noise, near low floors or overly high floors, which result in a higher cost. Typically, there are less units available compared to the built-to-order, which is a new launch. So for us, we had to face a higher risk of not getting a unit due to limited balloting chances. Typically, there will be less flats available for majority race. For myself, I'm Chinese. So due to Singapore's racial quota, especially for higher demand floor areas, we may not be able to get the flat of our choice. Okay, so what me and my husband actually selected was a 3-bedroom type flat. This is a floor plan showing a typical layout. This is actually the floor plan of our flat itself, which has a floor area of 62 meters square, an internal area of 60 meters square if we discount the structure and the walls. So as you can see here, a 3-bedroom layout can actually fit 2 bedrooms and a living room, a dining space. Upon receiving the flat itself, however, there will not be any fixtures such as kitchen cabinets or wardrobe. So all you have when you actually enter the flat would be, of course, the bathroom, the WC, the sinks. And for everything else, you do have to put in or set aside a sum of money to do renovation even after purchasing the flat. So for this flat, I actually paid about 300,000 USD for a flat of this size, and we actually budgeted about 30,000 USD just to do the renovation works for the interior of this flat. Okay, so during our selection process under sale of balance scheme, we were offered the selection of flats within the plots over here in this diagram, colored in orange. So plot A, this plot, plot B, and plot C. So today I will talk you through the process of us choosing a flat, comparing between the various plots offered to us under the sale of balance scheme. And as you can see, most of the flats are situated along this red color train line, where the red circles actually are the MRT stations themselves. So they are all within walking distance of the MRT train station, which was a priority for us. And for flats like these, for a 3-bedroom flat, it will be typically slightly more expensive than one located at a non-mature estate and further away from MRT stations. This was the first flat that we were offered to select. So this consists of 5 blocks of 38-story residential building, total 1,179 units, with a multi-story car park with rooftop farming, commercial facilities, and social community facilities like senior care and childcare. As we go along, you'll see that most of the flats will offer the same amount of these facilities as well. So for this flat, it's relatively affordable, an average of $257,000 US. It's already completed at the time when we were called to select, so it was immediately available to us. It was actually very near my parents' home, so we applied for a scheme in which we had a higher chance of balloting for a flat or have a more priority in the queue number to select the flat, particularly because if we actually selected this one, we would live very near to my parents, and it kind of encouraged co-living with the older generation. Okay, so for this flat, although there was 1,000 over units during the BTO, during the build to order phase, but because we had to select it under the sale of balance scheme, so there were only 16 units left for selection. So we were kind of against the low quantity of flats because there were only one 3-bedroom type per floor layout, and there was quite a tight corridor layout for 3-bedroom. A low quota of flats which was available for selection by Chinese, and there was a large number of people applying for this flat based on the website daily updates. So we thought that our chances of getting this flat was not very high as well, or the unit of our choice within this flat itself. Okay, this is just a site plan showing the layout of the 5 blocks of flat and the multi-story car park to give you a feel. And over here in orange, you see the 3-bedroom unit within a cluster of 4 bedrooms and studio apartments on one floor of the flat. The second option that we were considering was a unit within these 3 blocks of 40 and 43-story residential building. There's a total of 810 units. However, for this particular flat, there was only 2 unsold units left for selection, so the chances of getting a unit within this cluster is very low. However, this particular flat, it's near the Queenstown Heritage District and also near 2 other award-winning HDB designs by local architects. So it was kind of like in a very prime district and also in a more natural setting, not adjacent to the main road. We really liked this flat itself. However, we could not get the unit of our choice due to not getting like a good enough queue number. Okay, so this is just to show you in brief the 3 blocks of high-rise 40-story flats. Okay, so this is our third choice, our third selection. This is the flat which I'm currently living in right now. So it's just a 1 block of 23-story and 3 stacks of 43-story residential building. Total, there are 247 units, as well as commercial facilities, childcare facilities, and a precinct pavilion. So there were relatively more unsold units left for selection. There were 32 to be exact. It was a high rise, so we quite liked the feeling of a very high condominium-like project with unlocked views. It was also situated near the Queenstown Heritage District and commercial shopping centres. And it had high connectivity. It was very close to the MRT station, just a 3-minute walk. However, what we actually faced was that 9 of the units actually faced the western sun, which in Singapore is the highest amount of glare during the midday. And 9 units are of low floor, which we didn't quite like. And 12 units directly face the road junction. So we were quite lucky to get the unit of our choice, facing more of the park behind rather than the road junction itself. Okay, so this is the 1 block of flat, and we actually got the unit facing this park over here. This is the layout of the flat. So on each floor, there is actually 3 3-bedroom units, which offered us more room to select from. And there is 2 4-bedroom units and 2 2-bedroom units. There's also a greater separation between the units via the various sky bridges. So in summary, I feel that through this flat selection, I also learned that there's no best house, there's no best scheme, and each individual really chooses based on their needs. For us, we're willing to compromise a few factors to select out of sale of balance units, which were units that were not picked up during the build-to-order exercise. So in a way, it's a combination of market forces of demand and supply, with, I feel, the policies being as equitable as possible. For example, even for low-income groups, the government has housing subsidies, grants, and also an income ceiling to even purchase a HDB itself. So for the middle class, we are also subjected to partial equalizing factors such as the ballot scheme and racial quota scheme. So in a way, if you're lucky, you'll get to select a unit of your choice. As flats are also fixed price, you cannot offer a higher price to HDB for a particular unit. In terms of bidding allocation, it is quite comprehensive, with many options and flexibility to change based on the current social situation. So currently, there's also a reoffer of balanced flats when the case of sale of balanced flats is too slow to actually clear the existing housing stock left over due to limited releases each quarter. And there's also additional housing grants to resale market when the build-to-order or sale of balance quantity is insufficient. And in a way, we were quite lucky also to be part of some of the further schemes and incentives to encourage living near to parents, to allow for family building and continued care for each other into my parents' old age. So we actually had a more favorable queue number by choosing out of this pool of flats within this district. Thank you. That will be the end of the presentation for me.
Thank you so much, Jessica. That was great. Our next presenter is Nicholas Yong. Also, just FYI, scheme, I know in English doesn't sound super positive, but in Singapore, it's just a government term that just means program. So you kind of have to translate that scheme is like actually a good thing. It doesn't sound that way yeah.
Okay, great. Aloha, everyone. I'm Nicholas. So, as was mentioned just now, I studied in Honolulu back in April, and I really miss Hawaii, but yeah. So, this girl is just talking about BTO flats. So, mine is a resale flat. I bought it back in 2014. So, I don't really have a deck, so I'm just going to show you some photos of my flat, if you can see it. That's my living room. That's my dog. That's my study. That's my kitchen. So the size of the flat is about 968 square feet, and it's in a place called Clementi, which is a residential town in the west of Singapore. It's what we call a mature estate. It's got a lot of amenities like schools, the MRT is nearby, or the subway is nearby. There's a public gym and a swimming pool, a lot of supermarkets as well. They're all within walking distance. So a lot of these flats in mature estates are therefore more desirable and of course more expensive. So my flat costs $368,000. That's in US currency. So the reason that we're willing to pay more for it is that we like the location, right? I think Jessica was talking about how for her the MRT being nearby was an important consideration, and it was the same thing for us. The public transport system in Singapore is usually very reliable. So once you're near the subway, you can get to just about anywhere. And also another factor was that we bought it back in 2014. I think at the time there was still a bit of a shortage of BTO flats. And also part of the reason was that we wanted BTO flats in mature estates. So we had trouble getting, we balloted for these flats, but we couldn't get them. And also even if we had gotten them, we would have had to wait, I think like 3 or 4 years for the flats to be built. And we didn't want to wait. So we decided to pay more for this particular flat in this location. So as I mentioned, it costs $368,000. That's a pretty big amount. So we took out a loan. The repayment period is 25 years. And I'm not sure whether this has been mentioned before in the conference. So the typical interest rate is about 2.6%. So we pay about just over $1,000 a month combined. But we made pretty good progress in the 5 years stint, so we only have about 4 years or so to go on the loan. Yeah. So in terms of life in this in a HDB estate, it is very convenient because a lot of amenities are nearby. There's a lot of convenience, and my particular block is unusual in that because it's an old flat. We bought it was already about 34 years old, so it's only it's only 4 stories high, unlike a typical HDB block of flats, which is like 25 stories. And as I mentioned, it's 968 square feet, so it's a 4-room flat. These days, the BTO flats are actually kind of getting smaller. So again, there was another factor, to consider that we were willing to pay for a larger flat. Yeah. So so that was our consideration when we bought this particular flat. Of course, the one problem is that the resale value will not be very high because there's only about 60 years plus left on the lease. So in terms of the 99-year lease, that in itself is also an issue for a lot of homeowners in Singapore because, of course, at some point the lease will run out. And of course, with property, most people want to be able to pass it on to their children or their relatives or whoever. And you can, but the thing is that by the time you do have kids, by the time they are grown up and you passed on, there will be there won't be much time left on the lease. So the resale value will be pretty low. So one scheme in Singapore that they have, again, I'm not sure whether it's been mentioned before, they call it the en bloc scheme. So the 99-year lease has not been tested in Singapore. There hasn't. I don't believe there's any flats that has they have actually reached the end of the lease. So usually what the government does with flats that are nearing the end of the lease is that they will buy over the flats from the owners and they'll demolish that block and build new flats for these owners. It's called the en bloc scheme. So there are people who buy older flats with the consideration that, hey, maybe it will go through the en bloc scheme fairly quickly and I'll get a new flat and I'll get some money out of it as well. So for my estate, I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. And anyway, I do like the estate. It is, again, it is very convenient. Also, although one factor about HDB estates is that it's the close proximity in which people live with each other. Like opposite my block, there is an open field where there are often a lot of religious activities going on. For example, the Hungry Ghost Festival, there'll be a lot of performances in that field, or there'll be a particular god's birthday, and then they'll be having celebrations and burning a lot of incense and all. So it gets really, really noisy. That can go on for like 3 or 4 days. Although, thankfully, there is a limit on how long they can carry on with their festivities. They have to end by like, I think 10 p.m. at night. Yeah. So, yeah, that's life in a public housing estate. It is comfortable, it is convenient, the amenities are often very good, and yeah, so and especially in a mature estate, the flats are bigger, and yeah, although you do have to pay more for it. Yeah. So, well, that's about all I have to say.
Thank you, Nicholas. Oh, okay. Thank you, Nicholas. And our next presenter is Varian Lin.
Right. So I'm going to talk a little bit about transition. All right, I'm just going to do these. All right. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our process, my wife and I, our thinking around transitioning from HDB to the private market. So I'll do this in 2 very short parts. One, I'll share a little bit about our current home, which is a maisonette HDB flat that we bought on the resale market, very similar to Nicholas. And we'll go through our thought process on why we were considering moving and decided that we would move to the private sector, and why also some of the other considerations that other people would have. All right, so this is a floor plan of our current place, which is a duplex. It's 1,500 square feet split over 2 floors. You'll find that there are 3 bedrooms on the 2nd floor with a master with an attached bathroom, and a shared bathroom for the 2 bedrooms upstairs. On the main floor, when you enter, there's a dining area, living area. That we use for laundry. Sharing this up. So a little about sharing. So this is needed. The furnishing and all that belongs to the previous owner. So you can see a picture of the dining area, the living room, as well as the stairs. And a little bit of the balcony and the kitchen. And in this next photo, you can see some photos of the master bedroom, bathrooms, and the 2 other rooms, right? So what we did was we actually opted not to renovate the place. We changed the furnishings, repainted the place, and basically moved in. And this, just to give you an idea of how nice some HDB maisonettes can look. I found something online, and this is, as nice as it gets, if you hire a designer and spend a little bit of money to do it up. Okay. So going into the reasons for us to consider an upgrade, I'm going to put on this screen pros and cons for us to stay or to go private. And it's actually very well balanced, and it was a hard decision for us to make. Reasons for us to stay put where we are. We have adequate space. That's 1,500 square feet, 3 bedrooms, a study, 2.5 baths. It's great for us, more than sufficient if we were to have a family. Our flat is conveniently located. It's a short walk to the train station and fully sheltered. So even if it's raining, I would never get wet or have to deal with the weather. And like our previous speaker, Nicholas, I live in a neighborhood where there are a lot of amenities within a short walk. So there's a coffee shop, 2 supermarkets, a medical clinic, kindergarten, all within a few minutes. And we bought this flat for about 600,000 US a few years. And it's fun. It's about 400 US. And going to buy private, I would say the biggest reason would be one, and I'll do this a little bit later. And the reason be there is a release of currently 69 years left on the flat, and if we were to think about wanting to leave something behind to the next generation, that's also a reason why we would want to think about buying private, where it could be freehold or possibly 199 years, right? So on the family support side, I'll say that my wife and I are incredibly lucky that our families have private property that they are able to allow us to stay in. So that's one of the main reasons for us to consider private, and that So it's I'll go into a little bit about what the cost is like if we didn't have the support in a couple of slides after this. But if not for that, for the help that we can get from our families, it would be quite a challenge, and cost would be something that would be, I would say, the biggest factor in deciding to go private or not, right? There are a few other considerations for us. One being for HDB, there are pet restrictions. We are actually planning to get a dog, and there are limitations for the HDB flats that you're not allowed to have anything more than small-sized dogs. And if you want, say, a golden retriever or something like that, then that's out of the question, right? And in addition, you get a lot more privacy with private housing. And if you have a landed property, you have a lot more flexibility in long-term decisions that you make with regards to renovating the place. So these are a few other considerations that we didn't have as a couple for going private, but just based on my understanding from other people as well as reading blogs, and 3 things. One being schools. A lot of the top tier primary schools, access to the top tier primary schools is very much dependent on distance from those schools. And many of these schools aren't located close to HDB estates. And so that's one of the reasons why that's one of the reasons why people choose to move into private estates. I have a friend who used to live quite close by to where I currently live. He's moved across the island just because he decided that he and his wife decided that their daughter needed to have access to a primary school of their choice, right? Another reason for going private is space. So generally, HDB flats would be at about 1,200 square feet. Some of the larger ones are 1,500 square feet. I do know of people that consider that insufficient space when they have a family, a dog, etc. And I think the only way you could have a place that's much larger, say 2,000 or 3,000 square feet, is if you get a landed property, right? And of course, one massive reason for a lot of people to want to go private is there's a bit of a prestige factor. There's also flexibility of having facilities, or just simply you want to have a home that's designed and built to your needs, right? So that's largely the reasons. Just as a comparison, I took a look at some of the property websites in Singapore and looked at properties that are close by to where I currently live. So a condo that's maybe a 10-minute walk from where I currently live at 1,300 square feet, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, freehold, will cost about 1.25 million US, and that's at 943 per square feet, compared to what my wife and I paid for our place, which was 600,000 US and about $400 per square foot. This is a huge increase in the amount that we would have to spend. Then if you compare it to what a terrace house would cost, a similarly sized terrace house will set us back at least 2.2 million US, and that would be at about almost 1,500 per square foot. I guess one of the benefits of having a terrace house like this is, as I mentioned, you have the flexibility of planning ahead in the long term if you want to rebuild or renovate it to increase the floor size and square footage. But of course, it does come with a significant build cost. So that's pretty much it from my end. And like I said, I think the biggest reason for us to move private is the fact that we do have significant support from our families. And that's something that we're just very fortunate to have.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a big price difference from the public to the private market. So our last presenter, which I'm so excited about, is Annalisa, and she's actually lived in Singapore for a very long time. And
4 years.
What?
4 years.
4 years, okay, 4 years. But she's here in person to tell us about that.
Yes.
That's great.
Do you want me to sit down?
No, go up there.
Okay, sure. All right. Hey, everyone. How's everyone doing? I know it's rough. We're the last panel. Well, save for the wonderful senator's remarks, but thanks for sticking out through the whole day. This is a topic that's very near and dear to me because obviously I used to live in Singapore. I also was a real estate agent in New York, so I like housing. Real estate has been kind of I used to work for HGTV, which is the Home Garden Television, so I'm very embedded in real estate for a long time. So just a quick background, she gave you my bio, but I'm originally from LA. I worked in New York for a really long time. I covered business, finance, Wall Street, real estate. I was there when the housing crisis happened, covered a lot of foreclosures, affordable housing issues. So that's why this is a very interesting topic for me. My husband's job took us to Singapore. So that's why we moved there in about 2012. We were only supposed to be there for about 1.5 years because he was with the Navy. But I liked it. I got a job at the channel there, which is Channel News Asia. So when everyone went back to DC, I stayed in Singapore. And that's when I decided, okay, I'm going to try to live in one of these public housing projects, they're called HDBs. And because they're cheap. And back then, this was back in 2013, and I think people were looking for places to live through Craigslist. There wasn't that much, Property Guru or these websites that everyone used, Zillow. Back then, I think most people found roommates or housing as an American expat renter through Craigslist. So that's how I found some of these, and I started to kind of look around at all the different opportunities there. I didn't really know much about the public housing at the time, but I knew that they were cheaper than what I had been used to in New York. So then I thought, okay, I'm going to try to, rent a room with one of these Singapore homeowners that was because what they'll do is they'll sublet their apartments to different people that are kind of in transition. So I chose this area that was close to my office. It's like in the center. If you imagine Singapore as a diamond, it's like in the center where a lot of the orchard and all the, I don't want to name names that you guys won't understand if you aren't in Singapore, but there's like the hub of activity, the downtown areas, kind of south central of the island. And if you can imagine Singapore as you can fit 2 Singapores in Oahu, and and there's 5 million people on it. So most of the people are centered like in that downtown area, and everywhere else it's kind of like out in the boonies. The Navy is like all the way in the further north, but there's a very, very good public transportation system. So what I really enjoyed about Singapore is you can live in these kind of outskirts of the island, the lesser, populated parts of the island, but you're still connected. Like you can ride the MRT, which is their subway system, their rail system, and get to your office if you work in the main downtown business district. So that's key to this. I don't think people would want to live in areas that weren't connected, that would get you into work. But from Sembawang, which is all the way at the top north, it took like an hour or an hour and a half on the rail to get to the office. So just to give you a little bit of that perspective. And then my experience there, like everyone spoke about, it's public housing, right? So it's a little cramped, it's dense, but I'm living from New York, so I'm used to that. And I was alone, so if your sensitivity is okay with that, I think, I felt like it was convenient. I could walk to the subway, like they said, clinic, groceries, bank, everything. Like you just go downstairs because the bottom is all commercial and then the top is where everyone lives, and then it's just so convenient. So you just walk and you're there. School, there's, like they said, there's like some school daycare systems down there. So yeah, so as a low to middle income person, I could see how these are very accessible housing options. I decided when the family came to join me was to go private, because people are in your business, it's like a dense living area, they're high rises. So, if you don't get along with the neighbor next door, if you don't, they're close, and that's just how it is, right? So I decided I wanted to go and move to a condo. And the difference in price is exactly what everyone else said as well. They're double the cost. So I was paying, for a 3-bedroom that I was living in with other people, it was like $2,000 US. So what's that, like 1,500? No, sorry, 2,000 Singapore. So that's $1,500. And then I rented a condo. When we moved to a same-size condo, it was about 3,000 US. So it's double. It's essentially, I think, and that's what the other gentleman said, was 1,000 square feet versus 400 square feet for the housing. But you trade off by being close to the schools that you want to be in. You get a pool, or you get, it's the rules of real estate. You choose your location, you choose your amenities. But like I said, after having lived here so I've only been here for about a couple months, and I was invited by the senator to come join you today because it's a good opportunity to learn more about the housing issues here. And as a reporter, that's really what I want to kind of get out of this experience, is kind of hear from all of you. I wanted to put this out there in case anyone wanted to email me. It's aburgos@kitv.com. And just use me as a resource. If you know of things that are important to cover, or that you think we should know, the news business should know, just feel free to reach out to me. And yeah, I think this is an important issue, and I thank the senator for bringing this conference together and being on the show, and that's how we met. So anyway, any other questions? All right, we'll do a Q&A.
Yeah, we're going to do a Q&A.
Yeah, so that's it. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you so much, Annalisa. That was great. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So our other panelists are rejoining us. Great. From the other side of the world. So we have a question from Carson from Kaka'ako. Oh, he's asking about the renovations. So I think that's for Varian. If you could describe the extent of the renovations to your HDB flat. Maybe that's like how much it cost and what you renovated.
Right.
Yeah.
So so as I was sharing earlier, we didn't actually renovate our HDB flat. it's about 30 years old when we got it, but the previous owner had renovated quite recently, so we didn't have to do that. But as a benchmark, I have friends who live in similar housing, and a buddy of mine got a pretty basic renovation, got it, to a nice, decent state, and he spent, I believe, about 80,000 Singapore dollars. That's, I would say, probably about 55 to 60,000 US for a renovation, not including furniture and, other like fixtures. But yeah, that's about, I think, the cost to renovate.
And Nicholas and Jessica, did you guys do renovations? I know.
Yeah. For us, actually.
Let's go to Nicholas first. Sorry, Nicholas. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I should specify first that because mine was a resale flat, so there really wasn't that much renovation to do, and the cost can vary greatly depending on what you want to go for. Like, for example, if you want to replace the tiles, if you insist that you want Italian marble, for example, so that will greatly drive up the cost. Or if you want to change the bathrooms, or you want to change the if you would say you want to move the door of a particular room to another side, that is possible. So in our case, I mean, we had support from our parents. So, and then we spent something like, I think it's probably about 20,000 US dollars. And in our case, it was somewhat minimal as well. We didn't really do that much renovation. And also, the cost will go up if you decide to hire an interior designer. Although I think the mistake that a lot of people make is that they realize that, hey, they realize that they should have gone with an ID, because he's someone who will actually, he or she is someone who will help you to plan and to make suggestions about what you about the look of your flat. Again, the cost can vary greatly. I mean, I've been to a flat in the East Coast where this couple had a maritime theme, and I think they spent something like 80,000 Singapore dollars. I'm not sure how much that is. So, yeah. So in my case, it wasn't that much, and we were fortunate at the support of our parents as well. Yeah.
Seems like a universal issue of you can spend as much as you want to spend or not, right? And Jessica, if you wanted to answer that too for yourself.
For us, because moved in, so we needed to do up kitchen cabinets, and we tiled the toilets, so that actually costed us about 22,000 USD. Yeah, and we wanted to make more space for the living room, so we also actually tore down a non-structural wall to open up more space for ourselves, because our 3-room flat is actually pretty tight.
Okay. All right. So the did you want to weigh in on that, or?
I have rented.
Okay. Yeah. You didn't really.
Okay.
Renter. Okay. Yeah. Renters, we don't really renovate so much. Not really our interest. So Alan asks, when an HDB flat owner sells his or her unit and realizes a profit, does the government take a share of the profits? And is there a tax on those profits? I guess this would go to anyone who has sold a unit or knows people who've sold. What happens to the profit?
I can comment here. I mean, I haven't actually had the experience of selling, but at least to my knowledge, Singapore does not tax you on capital gains. So if you made money on property, on a flat, if you've gone past the minimum occupancy period and you're allowed to sell, whatever profit you make on that flat, you get to keep.
You keep it, and I think it's a 5-year, is that right? You have to keep the property for 5 years?
Correct.
Yeah. So, yeah, you pay a high amount in your taxes, and the employers pay a high amount in, well, I guess the forced savings plan. I mean, it's a form of taxes, right? So you're trading one for the other. Okay, any questions from the audience? No.
Hi, my name is Becky, and I actually work in public housing for the state of Hawaii. So my question is, you all seem very young, and I'm not sure what the typical family size is, how many children, your household size. How long does school go? What time do the kids get out? Where do they play? Because towers just don't seem like a good model for children and families and larger families.
Good question. Where do the children play? Anyone? Let's go ahead and we'll go in order again. So go ahead, Varian.
All right?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, my wife and I don't have any kids at the moment. We are thinking about it and we're planning. But just to answer that question, right in front of where we live, just downstairs on the ground floor from our flat, there is a small children's playground and an exercise corner. And I can tell you that almost every morning or definitely at least on the weekends, I'll wake up to children just kind of yelling and kind of, just making some noise because they're having fun on the playground, right? So there are spaces that built around and within the HDB estates that cater to children. I think generally speaking, most families, you have 1 or 2 kids. School-wise, most school sessions start in the morning at about 7:30, I believe, and it's done by maybe about 1 p.m. I'm not super familiar with it, but that's my understanding, and most of the time, parents or their helpers are up by 6 o'clock to get the kids ready to get to school.
So I realize I should have said. So Nicholas, do you have kids? Oh, Nicholas, do you have children?
Me?
Yeah.
No.
Nicholas. Sorry. You know what? Let's go ahead. Because I know Annalisa for sure had children in Singapore. So maybe you want to answer this question a little bit.
I didn't have them in the HDB, but I saw that they would just kind of run around. There is like little plots of grass and things, and just to explain, everyone has a helper most of the time. So that person will usually watch the children as they run around.
A helper, like a nanny sort of thing?
They're like live-in maids.
Oh, live-in maids.
Yeah.
Oh, that helps a lot, huh?
Yeah. So I think that's that helps with who watches the children, because the parents do work.
Yeah.
So my experience was I saw more seniors. At least in the areas, the main HDB that I lived in, there was a lot of older people.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I don't know what their situation was in living there, if they had bought it a long time ago, or if they were just kind of there during the day while the main homeowner was working.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I don't really know what that was. But that's who I saw mostly around.
Okay.
Older people, and then most of the time the children are, I just didn't see that many. They would come home from school and then I guess stay in their apartments and then play sometimes. I didn't see that many. I don't know, but that was just my personal experience.
Yeah.
I don't know if everyone else had the same.
Jessica, did you have, I think I remember Jessica saying she had kids, but maybe
I do not have kids.
Oh, okay.
But maybe I can share my childhood experiences as a kid. I actually lived with my grandmother in her HDB flat. So as kids, me and my cousins, we actually play block catching, block hide and seek, in which we just go across floors to floors trying to find and catch each other. There was also open field between blocks. So when we just gave up, we can't find each other, we always meet. Me and my cousins will meet at the open field. And there would be this Malay household selling ice pops. So we just go into her HDB home on the ground floor, give her maybe 20 cents, and we get ice pops at the end of the day. So I'm not too sure if kids nowadays, they actually play block catching anymore. Probably not, because I guess parents these days, they're very wary of their kids in Singapore and getting injured and whatsoever, and not touching like the grass and the ground, yeah. But that was my experience living in a HDB flat with my grandmother at that time.
Thank you. So we're going to go to the next question. It'll be the last question. And then, yeah, go ahead.
I have a question about the long-term maintenance of the building itself. Some of you, I think, are living in older buildings, and even the newer buildings, or in your experience with family. How are the buildings maintained for painting, plumbing, to keep the building itself in good condition? And are people generally happy with the management of the building, the maintenance of the building?
Okay, so maintenance and management. Since Nicholas did not speak on the last question, we're going to go to you, Nicholas, for this one.
Yeah. Coincidentally, estate maintenance there's a lot of discussion about that in Singapore. It's actually become a political issue. But so to answer the question, in every estate, there's something called the town council. So they are responsible for the upkeep of the estate, whether it's clearing the rubbish, or cleaning the estate, or the plumbing and the toilets. So if you have an issue, you can call the town council and they'll come and fix it for you. And for the most part, I mean, in my estate, again, mine is a mature estate, but for the most part, it's very clean. The rubbish is collected on time every day. Cleanliness-wise, I have no complaints. Although in other estates, there have been different issues about, say, lift maintenance, cleanliness. But that, for the most part, from what I know, it is all very well maintained. It is very efficient. There are plenty of cleaners around. Yeah, so that to answer the question, it's done by the town councils. For FYI, so the member of parliament for your estate, which is kind of like your congressman, is also responsible for the municipal duties and projects in the estate. So that, in that sense, also, like, if you're unhappy with the upkeep of your estate, you actually have. So you can express it at the ballot box and say, well, this is one reason I'm not voting for you, because my estate is not clean enough. But yeah, for the most part, my estate is very clean.
Okay.
My question is more about, can you hear me?
Yeah.
It was more about the building itself.
So the question is, what about the maintenance of the building itself, like making sure
How can you paint it?
Yeah.
Are there reserve funds for redoing the roof? You know, these big expenses that will come to every building over time. And is there enough money to take care of those big expenses when needed?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think Jessica will be probably the most well-informed on this issue, but there are funds that are doled out by the government to the respective town councils. So the question was asked about whether there's enough reserve funds. Each town council, I believe, has significant reserve funds in the millions. So there is plenty of money available for municipal projects, whether it's, say, building a barrier-free access ramp for people who need to move around in wheelchairs, or personal mobility devices. Repairing the lifts, like some of the lifts in the estate are pretty old. Yeah, so as far as I know, there is a significant reserve fund for each town council.
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
I'd like to add a point. I think what I've seen also is that, as a homeowner in HDB, every month I pay a fee to the town council. And I think that goes towards the maintenance and to that sinking fund. Goes towards repainting the flats externally every few years, patching whatever gets broken, On top of that, the Singapore government also has, or at least I believe HDB has programs that support the upgrading of flats, I believe every 30 years. So this is quite a significant one, where once the flat reaches the age of 30, within a couple of years, they schedule some sort of upgrading where they'll come in and look at the pipes and replace the plumbing, toilets, and that's, I believe, either at minimal cost or actually free to
Okay.
Also, once your flat is upgraded, the value of your flat actually goes up as well.
Yeah, yep, makes sense. Okay, well, thank you everyone for coming and joining us all the way from Singapore and being here in person.